Wait, don't walk away, please.
I think we're live.
Are we live?
That's what it says.
Oh, I'm never going to understand 'cause nobody says to me, start talking now. Normally I have someone in my ear going, say
Those are
something.
the old
So I
days,
start
girlfriend. Those
talking.
days are gone. Those days are gone when we had help. You had
Right?
binders. You had people telling you what to
And
do.
gotcha
Not to
stuff.
do.
Great. Good old days in Hollywood.
There you go. So we're on our own. This is Lesley Jane Seymour, and I'm the CEO and founder of CoveyClub.com. And
And I'm Marlawynne, her sidekick. It's like, I feel like Tonto here. Um, you know, um, and well, Lesley, you're so many things. Lesley's got such an amazing background. And really, Covey Club was built out of when More Magazine closed, how you could keep giving us what that magazine gave us, right?
yes, exactly. Talk about the real topics that matter. And that's what
And
we
some
do.
fun and some
And
fluff.
we have fun. And today we are going to have fun. And that's what these talks with Marla are about. Sometimes they're going to be serious. And then we decided the world is way too serious right now. And so today we're going to entertain you strictly with tales from the front. Now, Marla is a fashion and entertainment person. She was in Hollywood. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could not have handled that. And I can talk about the publishing field.
The
And
devil did wear Prada, right?
yes, that's why we called it The Devils Did Wear Prada. Though when I worked for the French, I will say the Devils definitely wore Dior.
The devils definitely were. It's funny because Lesley and I were kind of pounding our heads, going like, what should we talk about? And like, and we're like, I can't focus on anything serious because I just
Yeah, it's too serious. Everything's too serious.
so we thought we'd tell you stories from a different front line because I'm a little older than you, right? No? Are you older than me or are we the same age?
I just turned 64 last week.
Oh, well, I'll turn 65 in January. So that makes I'm the older, not the
Oh, you're
wise.
the elder. Okay, all right. So in deference to my elder, you can begin.
Exactly. You have to, yes, absolutely. So we were talking about, so many different issues came up over the past year, like the whole Me Too thing, remember?
Mhm.
And we were talking about what it was like when we got into business, because you have to understand when Lesley and I got into C-suites. I mean, the only women who had been in C-suites, I mean, there were a rare few. Sherry Lansing was there first. There were a few, but the reality was that particularly in Hollywood, and I think in publishing too, like we served coffee and typed memos. That's what we did. And women competed against women for the attention of men. I mean, that's sort of, we didn't play team sports. Our kids do, but we didn't. And so we really at that time didn't know how to help each other. But over the years, we managed to crawl our way up. Uh, and the stories of some of the people we've met are fabulous. And I just want you to start with the publishing world, because when David Frankel, who was the director of the Devil Wore Prada, actually did a series with me, he's an incredibly talented guy. But when I watched that, I thought, oh, that can't be true.
Oh, honey, it's all true. And
Ish.
well, yes. And I worked for 9 years at Vogue, as you probably know. And here, I'm going to put this up here so I can watch and see if there are any questions. If you guys have questions or you want to add in, I can now see us on Facebook there. So, well, I started out at Women's Wear Daily, was my first job. And then I went to the New York Daily News. And then I went to um, Harper's Bazaar as my first magazine job. And then I went to Vogue from there. And of course, in those days, there was no other form of communication for women in fashion. And it was, like ending up at Cartier, frankly. And it was crazy. I mean, the people there were crazy. Sometimes,
Was it, did men run it? Women? Who ran?
no, it was women running it. Of course, in the areas of money, on the publishing side, it was always men. And at the top of the corporation, it was always men. But this was the moment where women actually ran the place. Grace Mirabella was the editor in chief when I first went there, and she terrified me. I remember walking into her office as a lowly copywriter. I had not been introduced to her. I think I'd met her in passing when they hired me. I was too low. It's like I don't even know if I think they did. They must have interviewed me, but I remember going in, and I'm not kidding you, this is right out of Hollywood. She's on the phone, leaning back in her chair like this. She was a very magnificent looking woman, and she had a very strong face and features. And this was the days of Brooke Shields being on all the covers. She dominated all the covers. And she is literally, and I'm not kidding you, she said this, she said, I love the pictures, but the question is, where is the glory of Brooke? I don't see the glory. And I'm standing there going like, I'm going, okay, like, is this a movie? Is this real? And then she ends with, and furthermore, who put those heavy pantyhose on her? And I'm like, okay, this is my life. Like, my life is a movie of some sort. And that was the beginning of it. And it went from there. So
So
I'm sure you have things like that.
when I think back to like meetings I took and things that I didn't do, or the things I didn't pay attention to at the time, and just kind of like when I first got to Hollywood, there were basically 3 ways to get ahead. Like generally speaking, sleep your way to the top.
Yeah, the Hollywood was known for that.
Right.
Yep.
Be related to somebody, or
Right.
work your ass off.
Right.
I only had one choice. Would I have slept my way to the top if he was really cute and I liked him, but this was not my destiny. It wasn't, and I was related to no one and I was dating no one. So I had one option, and it was to work my little tushy off. And I will tell you that the adventures that I had over time, and not realizing that I was I wasn't the most beautiful girl in town, but I was a pretty little thing. I was young and wore my skirts really short and wore really high heels. And the fact that I found myself in a few awkward situations in retrospect doesn't surprise me, because I thought, I'm not going to make it in Hollywood because I'm not pretty enough, and I'm not this, and I'm not, it's the not enough syndrome.
You could have come to fashion. You could always make it as jolie laide, which is the ugly beautiful.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you were not ugly beautiful, but it was the Diane. I mean, there was a whole aesthetic.
There was, but I will tell you what I did instead. I developed a sense of humor, and I learned how to ski like hell. And so I got to go on ski trips with all the guys, and the girls were on the bunny hill in cute suits, and I'm like, and I made them laugh. But that immediately disqualified me for a date. But what it did do is it helped me move up the ranks, and I had amazing experiences. And I remember one of my first things that was stupid that I did was there was a man named Haim Saban, and Haim Saban ended up owning Fox before the Murdochs, and he created this thing called Power Rangers.
Oh God, Power Rangers. That was how my son grew up.
Okay.
He would not have grown up without Power Rangers.
Right. And so I get a call from my boss one day, and he goes like, I need you to take a meeting with this guy named Haim Saban. And it was like 6:30 on a Friday, and I wanted to go home. And so this man comes in with a very heavy Middle Eastern accent, very slick back, black hair. And he shows me this video. And I had recently been to Japan. I was invited to see the Sony Betacam because before I'd worked at New World, I was a director. So I'd been there, and I'd actually seen Power Rangers. So in the most arrogant, snotty, boy, did I deserve to lose big attitude, I say to Chaim, all you've done is buy this Japanese footage and revoice it. And he went, this is why it's brilliant. And I went like, yet, guess what? So stupid. I mean, Power Rangers. And I remember, and I was just like, and then later on, oddly, I stayed friends with Chaim, and I ended up getting to move to Europe because of him.
Oh, interesting.
Helped me get my first job. However, I did not get a piece of Power Rangers, in which case I wouldn't have needed to move to Paris. But while I was in Paris, I met amazing people. I spent a day with Roman Polanski, which was fascinating. I got to meet with Whoopi Goldberg to develop a series. And then when I came back to the US, I had an opportunity to do a series with one of the girls from Sex and the City. And people would say to me,
are we telling names? I said to Marla ahead of time. And first of all, thank you everybody for the birthday wishes. They're all wishing us happy birthday, because we're both in the same year, which is
Oh
so,
my God. I was gonna say, wait, did I miss your birthday?
no,
I got nervous. So they would say to me, is Charlotte is nice in person? Is Charlotte is nice in person? No, they'd say, "Is Charlotte a really good actress?"
right.
And I'd say, "Oh, she's an amazing actress," because she played the nice, sweet one. On that set, I had a fabulous director who had recently gone to AA. So he was really cranky. It's like, really, you had to quit right before you shoot this? So he was a hot mess and cried at a dime. And she is actually responsible for the fact that I have a career in fashion because I would get so intimidated and so upset because she'd kind of be mean that I would go to my trailer. And that is when I started really designing jewelry. And I'd sit in my trailer like some people would knit. And I ended up giving like the director a piece of jewelry for his wife and this one and that one. This woman intimidated the hell out of me. So I decided, yeah, she's a really good actress because she always plays these really nice people. And she made me
A
cry.
lot of it is acting. People ask me that a lot. I mean, that's why they call them actors. And that's why they're so good at it. And before, this is back in the day, like 20, 25 years ago, you didn't really have a doorway into their lives. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the star papers and all the Us Weeklies and all that. And these agents would spin the stuff that was going on. I mean, and as publishers, of course, we would have to deal with these people. And you would find out they were just not at all they were actors. They, would play these great fields. And behind the scenes, they were just these horrific monsters. I would say
And
that
not all of them, though.
not all of them.
I'll be honest.
There were some that were absolutely, I'll tell you one, Jamie Lee Curtis. When I was running Red Book, she not only did covers for us, but then she would call me and send me writers that she liked. She had a really great level of writing and literary, sort of things. And she would see things I would never see. And some people I took Drew Barrymore with me to Africa when I was running Mary Claire. And
What a shame. Oh, you had a hard job, Bubby.
I know. But she was amazing. She became a friend. I mean, she's the real deal. And what was amazing about her is I'd never traveled with a celebrity. You probably had. I'd never really done this. It was me being the editor in chief, and we were going to work on feeding the kids in Kibera, which is one of the worst slums in Kenya, because she was interested in education and I was interested in food security. And this is where those two ideas met. And what was so interesting was to spend time with her. There are a lot of different types of actors and actors out there, as you know. There's the family people, the people who've been in the business, the old Hollywood families are very different than the newcomers. The newcomers can be very, very, very difficult. But Drew grew up in it. So she has this long history of knowing what someone in her position does. And when we, everywhere you look.
And we have a question, which I'm going to get to in a second, but because of this, right, you learned, and I learned early on that there were people like that I met Michael Douglas early on because he was a friend of Sherry Lansing's, who was the first woman president of a studio.
Yeah,
and
I remember her. We used to do stories on her.
I knew her brother and I didn't know who she was. And when I got to Hollywood, she sent me a thing that said, congratulations, when I got a big promotion, in like 8.5 by 11 letters. So I call her up and I go, Sherry, thank you so much, but did you want me to have like an exceedingly large derriere? She said, no. People will ask you who gave this to you, and you tell them me. And that will be a currency for you. It will open doors for you. Which, by the way, was true. And it was so clever of her because she didn't give me flowers that would die. She gave me chocolate I wouldn't eat. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, how am I going to ever repay you for all the things you've done for me? And she goes, oh, you can't. I'm the head of a studio and you're just starting out. Here's what you're going to do. Someone calls you, you don't know them, they need your help. You will pick up the phone and you will help them. And I thought it was so such a brilliant approach. And the people I met through her, I met Wayne Rogers. Do you remember Wayne, who was on MASH? He was the good looking doctor on MASH.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I mean, amazing people that I met on rare occasions that I happened to be with her. And she was so helpful to me. And it was really quite extraordinary. And I think this leads into the question. If I understand the question we've gotten, Jason, it's what makes someone a star and what doesn't?
Ah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, what made us successful? Oh, I think, well, what set us apart? What made us successful?
Oh, yeah. So what do you think sets you guys apart from others that don't make it? Good question.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, you know what, guys? I think it was just, I had a lot of resilience. I mean, there were a lot of people, I got knocked down just as much as everybody else. Look, I mean, Mary Claire, I got fired from the French. I got caught in the middle of the French and the Americans fighting. And I thought I was there to do a great, you know, to do a great magazine. And I turned out I was there to make my boss look good.
Have you seen Emily in Paris?
Yes, not my favorite, but
I will tell you that was what my life was like the first few years, getting caught between, oh, the bright little American who's come to Paris to help us, except the French didn't want me there.
yes, that's a whole nother, we'll have a different conversation about that because working for the French is a whole nother thing. And I love the French. I've been a Francophile my whole life.
20 years of my life I lived there.
But working for them, I found was, you know, you think you know a lot and you think we're all alike. In many cases, we're not. It's just a different culture. But would you say, I mean, for me, it's resilience. I remember when I finally made it to be an editor in chief, I looked around me and I was like, where are all those people who had made it way before me? I was late to the game, actually. And a lot of people got knocked down once and they left. They ran away. They couldn't get back up. I had to get back up many, many times. And
yes, no, resilience, like you have to learn to be like, it just doesn't stick to you. Like, or in my case, sometimes I was very resilient independently, and other times I probably spent so much money in therapy, people build houses. But
my therapy, I did 25 years of therapy to learn what my issues were and what they weren't.
It makes you very insecure. I think you're being humble because I know you.
Right.
And I think you have many qualities, but one is that first of all, Lesley, you're one of the smartest women I've ever met. I mean, okay, so More Magazine closes. So what does Lesley do? She gets a master's degree in sustainability at Columbia and closes up her house and moves to New Orleans, like a few little things. So one, you're one of the smartest people I know. That's number one. Number two, you aren't political in the way that I think of politics, but you are filtered and politically savvy.
Okay.
You understood how to manage up and manage down.
You had to learn a lot about that.
Right?
Yep.
So I think, but yes, I think resilience is key. In my case, did you ever buy your kids that thing, you punch it and it looks like a clown, it goes down and it pops up? Like, right? That's what I felt I was like, or a little wind up toy in a cereal box and I'd hit an obstacle and I'd go this way and I'd go this way. So I totally agree that resilience is it. And for me, I actually think my sense of humor.
I think that's part of resilience, is being able to.
Well, but it's like, I mean, I can have my moments, that's for darn sure. But I think that I have a sense of humor. So it helped me understand, oh, we're making a TV show. We're not curing cancer. Okay, I get it. Like, and I had a self-deprecating sense of humor and a drive. I grew up in Denver, in a very small community of Denver. And I don't know, but coming out of the womb, I was sort of like, here I am. Like, okay, where's the action? And in Denver, yeah, I love to ski, but I just wanted this bigger, greater world. And I was driven to take a bite out of it. Mm-hmm. And that drives me, believe me or not, at 65 years old, I still want to take a bigger bite out of life.
Absolutely.
And that's a kind of drive that helps with resilience. So I think, but unlike you, I was never good at politics. I'm completely unfiltered. And that caused me a lot of problems, by the way. Some people liked it and other people not so much.
But you know what I found is that even if you're cautious, and I was very careful, I was very naive. I thought that if you were the good girl, you did everything your boss said, you did it all their way, you listened to all, you could still find yourself in the meat grinder. It, you know, there is, it's freeing to finally get through the meat grinder, because then no one can harm you anymore once you've done it. But it happens to anybody, no
But,
matter how you play it, you
but
know?
they were fascinating jobs because
Yes, these
I mean,
were.
Lesley and I met over Katie Couric because we were,
Oh, don't get me started on that one.
we're not going to go there.
That's a whole,
That's a whole
that's
other
a
kettle of fish.
whole other conversation.
Yes.
That
Okay. I'll tell you how wrong the whole thing was. Lesley was in the audience and I was on stage. That's how screwed up that was. But anyway, it was weird. But there's some great stories, right? Like
Let's
I have to tell you,
talk about the craziest. What was the craziest Hollywood story you ran into? In short, because we only got 10 more minutes.
you go, you go to your craziest because I got to think because there's just an abundance.
Well, I mean, there were just so many crazy, wackadoodle, insane things. When I was at Women's Wear Daily, for instance, this is just when I was starting out. There was a guy next to me, started at the same time. He went on to be a very famous, I won't say anything other than New York Times writer. And you would look for him sometimes and you'd be like, where is he? And you know where he was? And this were the days of old newsrooms. He'd be under the desk writing. So it started there. It started there with people like, just very eccentric. It drew a very eccentric crowd. And because fashion is such that there's so much leeway in fashion. And remember when Alexander Lieberman was running all these things, his whole point was he believed that in the friction between craziness and production, that's where the genius was. And so he would put up with all this crazy stuff that people would do because he thought that's where the creativity happened. And you would have, I mean, literally, you'd have people throwing things at people. I'll just tell you one quick story. When we were copywriters, there were 6 of us in a room. I was at Vogue, and we'd heard that regularly there was a fashion editor, I won't say her name, but she was a genius, but she was crazy. And she would scream at everybody on a regular basis at the full bellows of her lungs. And at one point she came in because I had written something that was yellow ermine and not white ermine. And she came into the doorway and stood there and screamed at us and said, "Who said this is yellow ermine? They should know it's white ermine." And we were all like, it was like the Oz figure. And we we're like, I may have accidentally put in yellow. I'm really sorry. And so then what we found out, though, we were really lucky because apparently the fashion editor across Manhattan at Harper's Bazaar, when we were talking about this, we're like, well, at least they just yell at us. We heard that she slaps the copywriters.
Yeah,
So
no, there were stories of just abject abuse.
we were
I had interesting experiences, but another one of my dumb things I did. So I knew Gwyneth Paltrow's dad, and they had come to Paris, and she was doing her first movie for Roman Polanski. It was her very first movie. She was like a little kid in cut off jeans and like no nails. No, she was not the Gwyneth you know. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce says to me, "Could you talk some sense into my kid?"
Oh, really?
We were at the cafe floor, or no, maybe Dumago. And I said, Gwyneth, I said to Gwyneth Paltrow, "Gwyneth, if you ever see this, oops." I said, "Well, honey, you really should finish college because you never know how these acting careers are going to go."
You don't know how it's going to go.
Right. Yeah. And look who she became and what an incredible businesswoman she is. But I had interesting experiences because I dealt with the men who ran the money, and then I had to deal with the actors and the producers. And I had a lot of experiences, and I will tell you that some people were wonderful and supportive, and we don't have enough time for all the Hollywood stories. But I will tell you that on more than one occasion, I was grateful to have not a cubicle, but an office, because I knew enough that I had to be tough. But if an actor screamed at me or a producer screamed at me, I would end up in my office in tears, right? like, I know you may have another client, but I have to talk to you right now. There was a lot that was very, very challenging, very, very challenging. But there were also wonderful ones. And I want to tell you one quick one that I think is amazing, which is that when we did the Wonder Years, I met Fred Savage's parents. They were from Chicago, and it so happens his agent was my agent from many, many years ago. And whenever we would cast kids, I would say to them, this will change your life. This will change your children's life. But I have to tell you, we're going to give him everything he wants. We're going to take care of him. We are going to keep him happy. And then we're going to go on hiatus and he has to go live his life. And all of a sudden, you know, no one picks up your dry cleaning and kisses your tushy. And adults don't even handle it, but look at the kids that Hollywood screwed up. And I had such respect for his parents. That kid there was no, I need this in the trailer for my son and I need that. They handled themselves so beautifully. And for all those years that we did Wonder Years, I never had to go in and solve a problem. And they would go back to Chicago and he would lead a normal life. Being in the front line, being famous, I don't think is what all it's you know, what we think it is, because at the end of the day, people go home alone. There was a wonderful Linda Ronstadt documentary, and she was in her house in Malibu after she had just taken off. And she was saying, yeah, it's great, but I'm used to living on the road and being with people, and I'm lonely. And I think that the cult of celebrity breeds loneliness. And then what the cult of Hollywood does is Hollywood takes care of people so that, like, even when I was a studio executive, they would pay, I could have my manicure done in my office. So I'd be on like a speakerphone doing deals, and they'd pick up my this and they drop off that and they get the car washed. Why? Because they wanted to make sure that they had as much of my brain and my focus on what they wanted me to do. They didn't want me going to spend 2 hours out at lunch. They wanted me there, reading scripts, doing deals. And if that happens at my level, imagine what happened at the level of anybody who attained true fame in the public eye. And then you go home and you still gotta, like, the toilet overflows, you gotta fix it. I mean, they have normal lives and then these big lives and then these little lives, and it's hard. It breeds monsters.
It does breed monsters. And I'll tell you that what I found is the bigger they were, the less monstrous they were in many cases.
True. Look at Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, all those people, no drama.
No drama. Like some of those people would show up for things like at the height of his career, because we're almost at the end. Tom Cruise did the Mary Claire cover when he was still hot before he went crazy, and was the first time Mary Claire ever did a man. And he showed up with no entourage. He came to the shoot alone, which is unheard of, as you know. They come with 25 people, and I will tell you, we'll have this conversation, a 3-page rider of all the, you know, M&Ms, the blues picked out, because I don't like that.
Elizabeth Taylor, you had to buy her a gift every day. Yeah. And I don't mean a tchotchke, I mean Tiffany's.
Yeah, but the bigger they were sometimes, the better they were. When we shot Drew for the cover, she came in, she said, I just need this lemonade from Trader Joe, that's it. And these other people wanted feasts. One, who I won't name, wanted a trailer for a cover shoot, a whole trailer. And we were like, no, we can't do that. This is not television. This is a cover shoot of a magazine. We don't have that kind of money. So anyway, I think this is a really good...
You know, my mind is like, I'm going through life. I have people, so many stories. I mean, I could do the whole an hour on my day with Roman Polanski. It was the most
amazing. I want to hear. I want to hear all the details of that. Let's come back and do the hour with Marla and Roman.
That's it. No, listen, the guy I used for my foot surgery was his foot surgeon. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, good. We'll come back. We'll reprise this. We're almost at the end here, so I think we'll come back and do a deeper dive, and maybe
yeah, we can be serious and we can be informative, but the fact of the matter is, I love your stories and I enjoy thinking back over some of mine.
It makes me feel better to know that someone just like me had the same experience, but in a different area.
We
So,
did. We did,
and
and
we
I'm glad we're sharing our experience now. So see you soon, Les.
see you soon. We'll be back same time next week.
Same
And
bad channel.
we'll find something. We'll either entertain you or we'll do something serious.
We'll entertain you, we'll bore you. We don't know what we'll do. We
Tell us
just hope
what
you'll
you'd like
show
to
up.
hear from us. Go ahead and put it in the Facebook page, or you can post it on Marla's Facebook page or on thecoveyclub.com. So thank you guys. Good to see you, Marla. That was fun. We'll have to tell more stories. And I do want to hear about Polanski.
A fabulous day.
All right, guys. Ciao.
Bye. Stop. I don't know how you, what do we do? What do we do?